teachers should be well trained. We have seen in Southern Africa, including South Africa, where in the primary school, we have teachers that are not well trained or well equipped to train certain subjects. And this impacts negatively on the children, on the learner. So it is therefore important to make sure that all teachers, they go through the same training program. And they should be made to pass. Teaching should not be seen as a vocation where every Tom, Dick, and Jill can go and take time talking to children. We need people that are in a position to teach children the right information, the right content, so that as they progress from grade 1, grade 2, until grade 12 in the context of South Africa, Form 6 in the context of other countries, then they have attained the levels that they are supposed to have attained. So the quality, the training that teachers get is important. And we have seen in some cases that this is amiss in most countries, where we have opened up the education sector so that we can cater for all children. Education also in most of our Bill of Rights is a right. Children are supposed to go to school from from the time that they attain the age 6 or even at times 5. So governments should make sure that they create funding to make sure that basic education is free. And the university education for communities that are underdeveloped or children that are rightfully proven to be coming from poor communities should go into universities for free. And the government should be able to subsidize heavily for those that go to university and promote certain subjects that seek to address the concerns of our communities or our economies on the continent.
All right. Absolutely. That is very important. Okay, now we are moving towards the end of the podcast because we will spend quite a lot of time here because it's very interesting, the argument. There are many other areas that really should have been touched, but of course, for time constraint, we are going to limit it to a few more things. So I'm going to ask you 2 more questions, then we are going for the day. Now, you have been in this educational sector for over 30 years, so I'm going to ask you, apart from the problem of infrastructure, which other area do you think that there is a serious need for change right now? What kind of change would you suggest that need to be done in whether in South Africa or in some other countries in Africa for quality education for the children?
I think I've mentioned 2 already, and these are the 2 that I think are critical to make sure that we have quality education. Besides infrastructure, there is need for change of the curriculum. I think we have labored on that issue for some time because the curriculum that currently exists does not serve the interests of the people on the African continent. The curriculum that is borrowed, which we currently use, shapes the narratives, shapes the children to a specific narrative. That's why we have lost our identity on the African continent, because most of the things, even if you look at some of the examination papers, they speak to things that are not even found on the African continent. That is why I seriously think that it's high time that our curriculum needs to be addressed. And once we address our curriculum, then we will move in the direction of making sure that we teach that to equip our children with the right skills and empower them with what we want them to do once they leave the schools. And the other issue that I also said is that of language. It's a high time as Africans, we believe in the equality of our languages, regardless of whether it is a minority language, like what some others say, or there are very few people who speak that language. It is our language and it should be prioritized. It should be the language of learning and teaching that we need to use, because without that, we will remain subservient to those whose languages we use in our learning and teaching.
Yeah, that is important. Somebody must pay attention to that. The language is very important because it's also about your culture. I think language actually is a window to your culture, because it is not just about opening your mouth and say something. There are a lot of things involved in it, from philosophy to idea to belief to because imagine you are listening to a TV program or a radio, you hear your own personal language inside. It gives you a certain sense of pride. So I agree with you completely. You see, in this podcast, we talk about a lot of things, from politics to education. We really talk about a lot of things today. Now, what I want to ask you to conclude is that what will be your own conclusion? Actually, I want you to draw the conclusion, conclude it the way that you will want. Say, maybe this is the only small part that somebody will get from the podcast. You will still get the message. This is the last. It's not a question. It's just a conclusion from you. Please go.
Africa is a continent that is rich in everything. It is rich in languages. It is rich in resources. It is a continent rich in every aspect. The education system or systems that we have on the African continent should seek to address the issues that we find on our African continent. It is our responsibility as Africans to design a curricula that addresses the issue of where we want to be tomorrow. No one can do it for ourselves other than us Africans. Hence, we need to have a deliberate call to Africans in the diaspora and Africans on the African continent to join hands in coming up with curriculum that will empower our children so that they become masters of their own destiny. We have land in abundance, resources in abundance. If we are to trade on the African continent on our own, using the various resources that we have, we will remain rich. If we look at what happened on the recent Olympics, if we put together the medals that were that each country on the African continent got, we will see that Mother Africa had the greatest number of medals. It was number one. That is what Africa is in every respect. If we unite and do things as Africans on the African continent, all these other countries and continents will play second fiddle. So it starts with us by believing in ourselves, by accepting our identity as Africans and becoming proud as Africans to do the right thing. Therefore, it is my call that as Africans, let us be proud of ourselves. Let us be prepared to teach our children our African curriculum and leave the borrowed curricula that we still find on our continent. If we continue to do so, we will remain subservient to those that had colonized us. Lastly, my fellow brothers and sisters on the African continent and in the diaspora, Africa is ready for each one of us to embrace an education system that seeks to empower skills, that seeks to ensure that our children embraces skills that will turn around the fortunes of the African continent and become masters of their own destiny. This is a challenge that we all have, and we should take upon our shoulders and work together to make sure that it becomes a reality, not in so many years, but in few years to come. We need to come up with history books that addresses our history as Africans and leave the kind of history that we have been exposed to, the history that have seen many of our children taking models that have nothing to do with Africa. And it is said, if we as parents, as educationists, authors, as professors, do not do something today to change our curriculum for the betterment of the futures of our children, posterity is beckoning, and it is us who should make sure that posterity is as good as we want it to be for our children.